Hi all, I've just had an idea for a video to look at match scores of world chess champions. This might be interesting to you just from a statistical perspective. So if we start with the first world champion, Steinitz, and against Lasker, who was the second official world champion, Lasker actually beat Steinitz 26-8 with 12 draws. So there's quite a big gulf in their virtual match. So you might wonder, Steinitz versus Capablanca. So I'm going to put this on Capablanca. They didn't play. So Steinitz never got to play Kappa, but what about Alekhine, just to make sure? Never played. So let's go on now. Lasker versus Capablanca. 6-2 to Capablanca with 16 draws. Lasker versus Alekhine. 3-1, a bit narrower actually. 3-1. Euwe, Max Euwe. Lasker versus Euwe. He actually beats Max Euwe 3-0. Incredibly. If you include rapid exhibition games, it's then 3-1. So yeah, it seems Euwe was a victim. It was this Simmel game in 1920 which Euwe beats Lasker. Lasker versus Botvinnik. Let's just check that. Botvinnik beat Lasker 1-0 with 3 draws. Lasker versus Smyslov. This might be too late. Smyslov didn't play against Smyslov or Tau or Petrosian. It was later on. So now let's go on to Capablanca. Now go on to number 3. So we've seen Capablanca versus Lasker just as a revision. It was 6-2 against Lasker. Against Alekhine, quite a close virtual match, 9-7 with 33 draws. So they mostly drew, Capablanca and Alekhine. There's a long video on the channel featuring their draws, which are often in the same opening in the Queen's Gambit. Declined a particular variation. It's like they were having a big discussion on. So Capablanca versus Alekhine. Capablanca versus Euwe. He beat Max Euwe 4-1 with 13 draws, quite a few draws there. Capablanca versus Botvinnik. Capablanca tied with Botvinnik, just 1 each with 5 draws. So that's interesting. Capablanca versus Smyslov. I think that's too late. Smyslov was the later generation. So let's go on to Alekhine versus Euwe. We've seen it was tight between Alekhine and Capablanca, but Alekhine Euwe beat 28-20 with 38 draws. So Alekhine Euwe, yes, quite a lot of games they played with each other. We've seen against Botvinnik, Alekhine against Smyslov. I think a Smyslov later generation, don't think he played. This is a curious game which I stumbled on earlier, which actually also helped prompt me do the video, because it's such a curiosity game. It was actually Smyslov's dad, this game. If you want to check it out on chessgames.com, I urge you to do this search on chessgames.com, check out this game. His dad was a first category player and actually beat Alexander Alekhine. It's incredible. And obviously he passed on his interest to his son Smyslov and saw him become a grandmaster apparently, so there's a nice story there. So Alekhine, yeah, Smyslov was too late, but his dad, you know, someone got to play his dad. So if we go on to like the next generation, then Botvinnik, so he had multiple world chess challenges. Botvinnik, let's see again, just to revise. Did he ever play Steinitz? That was too early for him. Did he ever play Lasker? Well, actually, yes. He beat Lasker 1-0 with 3 draws. So let's review this. Botvinnik versus Capablanca. Let's review again. 1-1 with 5 draws. Botvinnik versus Alekhine. 1-0 with 2 draws. Botvinnik versus Euwe. He tied with Max Euwe 2-2 with 8 draws. Now we go on to Smyslov. So he beat Smyslov 29-24 with 53 draws. In fact, that's like so far the biggest virtual match between any world champions I've paired together. 53 draws, and quite a close margin on the actual decisive games here. Botvinnik against Smyslov. Botvinnik against Tau. 12-all with 20 draws. So yes, the overall score a complete dead draw there. 12-all with 20 draws. Botvinnik versus Tau. Botvinnik versus Petrosyan. It was Tigran. Petrosyan actually beat Botvinnik 7-4 with 21 draws. Great draw master Petrosyan. So he actually has an edge over Botvinnik. Botvinnik against Spassky. 1-0 with 7 draws. Botvinnik against Fischer. They did play one game which is on the channel, and that was a draw. You can see that game on the channel, and it had an adjournment actually. This game, it was a very complicated end game to study actually. So Botvinnik against his students now. Did he actually play Karpov in a serious game? A draw apparently in a Moscow clock symbol 1964. Did he play Kasparov? No, not in a recorded game at chessgames.com. He didn't play Kasparov apparently. So I'm getting this wrong. So Smyslov, let's go on to Smyslov. So after Botvinnik, although Botvinnik wrestled back his world title, I think, from Smyslov, or was it some others? But so Smyslov versus, let's see, did Smyslov ever play Lasker? I think it's too early. We've established it's too early. Smyslov versus Euwe. That's quite a margin. Smyslov beat Max Euwe 7-1. Smyslov versus Tau. Smyslov beat Tau 4-3 with 21 draws. Smyslov versus Petrosyan. Seems to have a good score against the other world champions, Smyslov, so far. He beat Petrosyan 6-3 with 25 draws. So was it only the attacking Spassky, the attacking style of Spassky, which Smyslov succumbed to? Yes, Spassky beat Smyslov 5-3 with 19 draws. So otherwise, Smyslov was doing well against the world champions. Let's go later. Smyslov against Fischer. Fischer beat Smyslov 3-1 with 5 draws. Smyslov against Karpov. Karpov beat Smyslov 3-1 with 10 draws. Quite a lot of draws. Smyslov against Kasparov. Is there less draws here? Quite a lot of draws again. Kasparov beat Smyslov 6-1 with 11 draws. I'm only going up to Kasparov, by the way. So on this little statistical thing. So Tau. We just reviewed Tau again. He never got to play Alekhine, right? Just make sure, for example, or Capablanca. Sanity check. And we'll go on. So Tau against Botvinnik. Just to review that, it was tied, wasn't it? 12-all with 20 draws. Tau against Petrosyan. 5-4 with 35 draws. The Rock meets the attacking player. 35 draws. Tau versus Petrosyan. Tau versus Spassky. Spassky beat Tau 9-7 with 28 draws. Tau versus Fischer. This is an interesting clash. There's quite a lot of these games I've video annotated on the channel. I think most of the decisive games are actually video annotated on this channel, this kingscrusher channel. Tau beat Fischer 4-2 with 5 draws. Tau versus Karpov. 1-0 with 19 draws. They had a great respect for each other, offering draws. Tau versus Karpov. Tau versus Kasparov. Kasparov beat Tal 2-0 with 10 draws. Only 2 in the long games, but in the exhibitions it was 3-1. They had a 5-minute game, for example, here where Tal beat Kasparov. Otherwise, Kasparov beat Tal 2-0. Okay, Petrosyan. Let's go on to Petrosyan. I'm going chronologically from Wiki's world champion list. Petrosyan versus Botvinnik, just to review. Okay, 7-4 with 21 draws. Beat him. Petrosyan versus Smyslov, bit of a review again. 6-3 with 25 draws. Spassky, just a review. Spassky beat Petrosyan 11-10 with 54 draws. Fischer, again, 8-4 with 15 draws. So Fischer beat Petrosyan 8-4 with 15 draws. Karpov, 1-1 with 12 draws. Kasparov, I suspect this is interesting. Yes, he tied Kasparov 2-2 with 1 draw, and in fact, the 2 losses I think came when Petrosyan had bad health problems increasing actually. So Petrosyan was a mighty player. Let's go on to Spassky now. So Spassky versus Botvinnik. Botvinnik beat Spassky 1-0 with 7 draws. So that one decisive game in 1966, a team tournament Karakan Classical. Spassky versus Smyslov. Let's review. Sorry, I know there's duplication here. 5-3 with 19 draws. Beat Smyslov. Spassky versus Tal, 9-7 with 28 draws. Spassky versus Petrosyan, just 11-10 with 54 draws, just edging up Petrosyan overall. Spassky versus Fischer. Fischer beat Spassky 17-11 with 28 draws. Spassky versus Karpov. This could be interesting. Karpov was the new kind of hero of the USSR. Karpov beat Spassky 14-2 with 23 draws. Quite a lot of beatings there, actually. Yeah, okay. Spassky versus Kasparov. Maybe it's less severe here, I suspect. 2-2, far less severe than against Karpov with 4 draws. Maybe some of you can do a stylistic analysis of why these results are happening. Some of these results are happening, why it's a big margin with Karpov. Maybe it's just events and frequency of encounters. So now let's go on to Fischer. Did Fischer ever play Botvinnik? Yes, I think I mentioned that. It was a draw. Fischer got to play Botvinnik, but as a sanity check, Fischer never played over, or did he? Let's go a bit earlier. Did Fischer play over? He tied actually 1-1 with 1 draw. So this is going back to New York, 1957. 2 games there, and then in the Olympiad final. So interesting. When Fischer beat Max Euwe. Okay, Fischer never played Alekhine. I'm pretty sure, just as a sanity check, it's too early, or Capablanca. So Fischer now versus. Okay, we're going to do some duplication again, because otherwise I might miss something. It's better to duplicate, I think. Oh, we've already covered that for sure. Fischer versus Smyslov. That was a draw. So Smyslov, 3-1 with 5 draws. Versus Tal, we've seen that that was close. Tal beat Fischer 4-2 with 5 draws. So against Petrosyan, we've seen he beat Petrosyan 8-4 with 15 draws. Spassky, we've seen Fischer against Karpov. They never played. That's a tragedy for chess. They never played. Karpov was defaulted as world chess champion, never got to play. Fischer, not even in one serious game ever, even outside of that. Yes, that's a shame. And Fischer never got to play. Kasparov either. Another tragedy. So Karpov, let's start with Karpov as the main focus, versus Alekhine was definitely too far apart historically. Karpov versus Euwe, did they play? Nope. Karpov versus Botvinnik Training School. A draw, Clocks Simul, Moscow Clocks Simul. Training game kind of thing. Karpov versus Smyslov. Yes, 3-1, 10 draws. I know we're revisiting this. Karpov versus Tal. 1-0 with 19 draws. Karpov versus Petrosian. 1-1 with 12 draws. Karpov versus Spassky. 14-2. That's quite a beating with 23 draws. That's quite a most impressive beating of any other world champion, it seems, against Spassky. So he's really proving that he's future, past Spassky in a way with this quite severe beating eventually. So Karpov versus Kasparov. It's in Kasparov's favour, 28-21, closer than most people might imagine, with a gigantic number of draws. So some of the most tediously drawn out World Chess Championship matches, which actually reform the structure of matches, not to be like the first person to win so many games, because it's just endless amount of draws in certain matches. That's why, I mean, it weighs heavily on the draws, these two. So let's finally go on to Kasparov. That's the last one I want to check out. Kasparov never really got to play Alekhine, one assumes, far too apart. Euwe, maybe in the casual game, not really. Botvinnik, his trainer, I think we've established he didn't play Botvinnik in a serious game. Must have played him in a 5-minute game. Botvinnik, School of Chess. Botvinnik versus Smyslov. Sorry, Kasparov versus Smyslov. So 6-1 with 11 draws versus Tal. Let's review it. 2-0 with 10 draws. Petrosian. 2-2 with 1 draw. Spassky. 2-2 with 4 draws. So Kasparov didn't do so well as Karpov did against Spassky. Fischer never got to play, unfortunately, as we mentioned. And Karpov, we just mentioned, revisit again, the mammoth match of all, actually, in all world champion encounters. They really played each other more than any other pair of world chess champions. Yes, I had this crazy idea of doing this video, and I thought I'd do it, and here it is. Not much editing. I don't know what you want to get out of it, but I thought it was quite interesting, maybe statistically, to see how the first, classical top, the first 13 world chess champions fared against each other. By the way, Steinitz never played Morphy. I think Morphy was trying to get a game against Steinitz. If Morphy can be considered before the official world chess champions as the as like the strongest player in the world, they never got to play. So okay, yeah, I thought that was interesting myself. I hope you did in some way, and maybe look up some games of interest. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.